I want to start out just kind of thanking this group here and the people who put on this convention. Thank you so much. Without all your hard work, I know you get paid a lot of money to put this on, and you know you're grifting hard, I'm sure. But thank you so much for putting this on. It's important. I woke up this morning. I was thinking I needed a T-shirt, and the T-shirt would say, "I went to bylaws and I survived." Yeah, so what I want to talk today about is that we have in America the illusion of choice when it comes to our voting systems. We have been captured by two private corporations, the RNC and the DNC, who effectively run our elections and run our country. They're basically an election cartel, and they've captured our voting. They believe that they're your parents, basically, and that we are their children, and they do not provide you liberty when it comes to voting because it's the illusion of choice. In 1988 was my first election that I could vote for a presidential candidate, and I voted for Ron Paul in 1988. I didn't know anything about libertarians. I just liked that he was talking about the fact that we had this giant debt and that we were going to be suffering under it. And so that was kind of the theme for me for the next number of years. And the next election that I could participate in was 1992, and a guy named Ross Perot was running. And Ross Perot was also talking about getting the debt down and that we were under this incredible debt. Now, Ross Perot ran as an independent, and he got 19% of the vote, which is unheard of. It's never happened again. And before that, it was rare. The two parties saw this as a threat. They saw this as a way that maybe they would lose their power, and they went at it full force to basically rig our elections after that. They started with lots of gerrymandering. They did winner-take-all laws. They passed laws to basically prohibit you from petitioning and made all kinds of barriers to entry that were bad, and winner-take-all laws and that sort of thing. Now, running for president, I knew before running for president that our elections were rigged. I remember sometime in the 90s thinking to myself, gosh, it seems like all I can do is vote for Clinton or Bush, Clinton or Bush, Clinton or Bush. And I thought, this isn't really a choice. I'm being forced. I'm being forced. And as a libertarian, I don't like force. And I thought, gosh, I don't want to do these people, but this is the only option. And it's almost like the Democrats and Republicans would probably like to pass a law that says you can only vote for Democrats and Republicans, but that might be kind of weird and unconstitutional, and but I think that they would try to pass that if they could. And you see some of the laws that they passed are quite close to that. In fact, I was talking to a gentleman earlier today, and in his state, if there's an elected official that leaves, the Democrats or Republicans are allowed to appoint a new official to that position, but Libertarians and Green parties are explicitly denied that in the law. It says if you're a Libertarian or Green Party, you can't replace these people, which seems insane to me, but apparently that's the law that they have. I've been working with a nonprofit that I started, and in that nonprofit, we've been trying to share stories about ballot suppression, about election integrity, and that sort of thing. And so I've kind of been hearing more and more stories, which I guess shouldn't shock me, but they do. You're all familiar with Larry Sharpe, who's running for governor of New York right now for the third time. In 2020, during the COVID lockdowns, the Democrats in New York put a poison pill in a 1,000-page bill. And that poison pill came and wrecked Larry Sharpe in 2022 when he was running. And the poison pill was that he needed 15,000 signatures in order to be a candidate for governor. And in the middle of the election, in the middle of gathering the petitions, the state changed those requirements from 15,000 signatures to 45,000 signatures. And they changed the time limit in which he was allowed to get those. So basically, they made it almost impossible for him to win. or to get on the ballot. And through some crazy Herculean task, his people in New York and him got 42,000 of the 45,000 signatures, right? But of course, he was denied access to the ballot. He sued the state and said, you can't change the rules of the game in the middle of the game. And so the judge said, basically, you're right, but I'm not gonna like give you anything. And part of the issue with all of these different litigations that we have going on, I know there's some going on in California, is that your remedy for having unfair ballot access is to go to judges, okay? And the judges are wearing black robes, but under their black robes is their partisan jersey, because they're appointed by either a Democrat or a Republican, depending on which state they're in. And they're not gonna go ahead and rule against their party, because then they're not gonna get the next judgeship. So they're basically captured. So we've been looking for these different stories because we wanna educate people on just how corrupt the system is. And there was a gentleman, Nasir Bedouin in Michigan. Now, Nasir also needed to collect signatures, and he needed, I think, 24,000 signatures in his state. Every state has different rules. Every state has different rules on the paper that you can use, whether you need them to be notarized, whether, what time period you can put them. There's so many rules. You really have to know the rules in each state. And that convoluted system makes it very difficult for anybody that's not a Republican or a Democrat to achieve. Because it's just so complex. You need an expert to be able to navigate all these things. So Nasser was getting his signatures, but he was afraid of getting doxxed. And he had a young family, and he didn't want to have people show up and heckle him or come to his house. And you've heard stories about different politicians having crazy people show up at their house and hurting them and that sort of thing. So Nasir put down a P.O. box on his petition form where he was gathering the signatures. And on the petition form, it doesn't say anything on the place where he signed, but below where the actual signatures are, it says no P.O. boxes allowed. But on his line, it didn't say that. The Democratic Party sued him, said you can't put a P.O. box on this line. He said, I don't see anything, there's no rules. And they came up with some funky rule that they pulled out of the middle of nowhere in some crazy bylaw. And basically, they denied him the ability to get on the ballot. Now, 24,000 people stood on a street corner and signed that they wanted this guy to be their representative, that they wanted an opportunity to vote for this guy, but they couldn't. Same with Larry Sharpe. Now, this next story, really got my blood boiling. So there's Dr. Bosworth in South Dakota. Now, Dr. Bosworth is a missionary, and she goes to different countries and basically gives her free time to save people's lives. And she wanted to run in South Dakota, and she had gotten her petitions, and she went off to this mission in the middle of the campaign to go help people. And while she was gone, her mother, her clergymen, and her co-workers signed a petition. And when she got back, she wrote on the petition that she had witnessed these people signing because it was her friends and family, and she knew who they were. The Attorney General of the state at the time was best friends with the person that she was running against. They hit her with 12 felony counts for falsifying documents. And they went after her medical license and tried to ruin her career and basically end her ability to be financially sustaining. And what I've kind of learned, I was listening to Thomas Massey was talking about this the other day. He said, if you are a wealthy individual, you probably shouldn't run for office because they will ruin your life. They will try to take your business. They will try to take your money, and they will ruin you if you become a threat to them. And I don't know about you guys, but to me that seems wholly un-American. A couple more quick stories. Kennedy, who was running in the last cycle, obviously you all followed that. He was a Democrat, then he was an independent, and then he went MAGA, so I don't even know what that guy was doing. But But he was trying to get 50 state ballot access, just like Ross Perot had done. Ross Perot got 50 state ballot access. And I had said that if Donald Trump was running as a libertarian, or if Donald Trump was running as an independent in 2024, he would not have gotten 50 state ballot access. It's impossible. It's impossible for an independent, a third party to really, third party's better than an independent. Independent is really, really difficult. So anyway, he's trying to get these signatures in New York, and he needed to get the same 45,000 signatures. And he crushed that. You know, he had all the money, he had the name, he had all the people working for him, and he got, I don't know, like 70,000 signatures or something like that. And he turns in these 70,000 signatures, and the Democrats sue him. And they say, well, Mr. Kennedy, we see that you put down this address here, and we don't actually believe that this is your residence, that you don't live at this place, and so all your petitions are null and void. And he said, well, wait a minute. I pay state taxes to New York, and I hold a law license in New York, and you're telling me that I'm a resident of California? Well, I would have asked for all my tax money back personally. But you know, he was denied that, and that was a big piece of why he switched out of running as an independent, because once he realized he couldn't carry New York, what's your chances of winning the election if you can't get those electoral votes? Zero. Your chances zero. So that's why he pivoted. I got the chance to debate a bunch of people during my campaign. One of the people that I debated was Jill Stein, the Green Party. And she told me a horror story, which I really couldn't believe. You know, a lot of times libertarians, we want to reach 5% in the presidential election. If we get to 5%, we get matching funds from the government. Now, some people take umbrage with that. I'm not going to get into that right now. But she had reached this threshold and gotten the matching funds. And so during her campaign, she spent, I think it was $250,000 that she got. She spent the $250,000 on, you know, literature and ads and whatever. And after she had got done spending this money, the government came to her and said, oopsies, you don't actually qualify for that. So you need to give us the $250,000 back. And she's like, well, I spent it and I don't have it. And they said, oh, well, you have a pension account and a 401k, and we'd be happy to take those from you in order to settle your debt with the US government. And it's like, you know, when all these things kind of add up to a chilling effect on any candidate that wants to run as an independent or third party. Because if you face all these Herculean things, if you face losing your job or felony counts for that matter, then you second guess whether you should run for office, whether you should serve our country. I was in Philadelphia in Independence Hall, and I was doing a tour of Independence Hall, and the woman showed where First Congress had met. And she said, all these people that came to this first Congress, they all had jobs. They were either blacksmiths or maybe farmers or ran a store or whatever. And that when they came here to Philadelphia, to Independence Hall, they were coming here to be of service to their country, that it wasn't a career. And somehow we've turned our politics into career politicians that are not being of service to our country. They're being of service to themselves and to the two private corporations that control our elections and our country, the RNC and the DNC. Last week, well actually this week, it's been a long week, earlier this week I filed to run for Congress CA 19, Santa Cruz and Monterey County. And I paid my $1,740 filing fee, and I have to get my 70 signatures that I need to get. That sounds really good. That sounds like pretty easy ballot access. It's like, I mean, it kind of sucks. It's $1,740. Some people, you know, that's a lot of money, and that's a barrier to entry, and I'd like to see that even less. I feel like even if you're a gas station attendant, if you want to serve your country, the barriers should not be there, and you should be allowed to serve your country, regardless of whether you have money. It shouldn't be a club for only millionaires to serve our country. That seems ridiculous to me. So I got to thinking, I paid $1,740 and collected these signatures so I could be on a primary election that doesn't count for anything. And I'm thinking, well, why was I gatekept to a thing that isn't even actually an election? Like, I have to pay so I can participate in a thing that doesn't even actually elect you. And then, oh yes, California has top 2. Top 2. It's kind of like the ultimate gatekeeping, right? The primary system is the kids' table, right? And everybody is relegated to the kids' table except for maybe 2 Democrats or maybe a Democrat and a Republican. And my personal belief is that we need more competition in our politics, that if we have more candidates, it sharpens all the other candidates. If we have more voices and more ideas, that seeps into the other candidates. Even if you don't win, they have to listen to your thing, and the audience, the public listens to your thing, and then that is like changes the public tone. But if there's never anybody challenging you, you can just continue to spew your propaganda, and there's no one challenging. And so we, like I said, we have an illusion of choice in America and our politics. All right, so when I was running my campaign, many of you know I had a platform of Stop 270 to basically win electoral votes and deny Trump and Biden the opportunity to win the election, and then you have it be a contingent election in the House of Representatives. And when I went there to Maine, I was really excited to tell them my plan, and they thought it was a great plan. And they said, there's one problem, Lars. And I said, well, what's the problem? And they said, well, we don't have ballot access. Oh, okay. Well, it turns out that in Maine, the Secretary of State decided that the Libertarians had been on the voter rolls for too long, and that every Libertarian was stale, and removed every Libertarian off the voter rolls. So there was no more Libertarians in Maine. Of course, the chair of Maine took umbrage at that. And they proceeded to sue the state. And the judge said, you're right, they shouldn't have deleted these people. These weren't stale people. They didn't have any stale Democrats or Republicans. Obviously, all those were perfectly fine. And the judge ended up saying, you're right, this was wrong. They shouldn't have deleted these people from the voter rolls, but I'm not going to put them back, right? Which I don't know how that works exactly. So the way Maine works, in order to be a major party, it's not about getting signatures, it's about registered voters. So they needed 10,000 registered voters to have major party status to be able to just put candidates on the ballot. And the chair of Maine, Harrison Kemp, he thought that 10,000 was insurmountable. I think they had gotten back to like 2,000 or something like that. And so they went ahead and went back to court, and they were able to get the state legislator to reduce the number from 10,000 to 5,000, which is huge. And so when I went there, they still needed like 3,000 registered voters, and we had a few months left. It wasn't going to happen. I flew up there and I stood on the street corner trying to register people to vote. It's really hard to get people to register to vote as a Libertarian. It's sort of easy to get a signature, but registering to vote is a whole nother game. And so we ended up having to team up with Richard Winger and Bill Redpath, and we gathered the money together, and we hired professional signature gatherers, and we were able to just barely squeak over that 5,000 limit, and we got Maine major party status again so that they can run people for elections. So like I said, I have this nonprofit Voting Rights Foundation, and about 6 or 9 months ago, we got a phone call and said, hey, we've got a major thing going down in Wyoming, and we think you should be part of this, this action. And I said, well, what is it? And they said, well, we think that we have a potential to get proportional representation in front of the State House in Wyoming. It would be the first time any proportional representation bill had been placed in any state in America. And I thought, wow, that seems like a really cool thing, because proportional representation basically ends gerrymandering. There's no more lines, and I hate gerrymander because you see the lines and they just draw them around people's houses, and they're like, you're included, you're excluded. I mean, it's the ultimate like rigging of the system. So just this week, my team and I flew up there. We met with tons of the legislature and educated them on proportional representation. We did a lot of advertising in the state. And this week, the state voted something like 27-4 to push the bill forward in the State House to take it up for consideration. And we don't think that it'll pass this year, but just the fact that it's before the legislator and they're discussing it, if we could get proportional representation in one state, I think other states would fall, and we could have a much better chance. What proportional representation would do is, let's say that there's 40% Democrats and 40% Republicans, and there's 10% Green Party and 10% Libertarians. They just give those percentages to the Congress or to the State House that they're trying to do. And so you would automatically get representation as a Libertarian Party without having to be necessarily voted on, or the Green Party, that sort of thing. All right, so I've been running this thing trying to, we have Voter Choice Foundation, which is a 501c4, and Voting Rights Foundation, which is a 501c3. And we have crafted 50 state legislation to change ballot access laws around the country, just like we did in Maine. Because Harrison Kemp came to me and he said, I think we can do what we did in Maine in 10 or 20 other states. And the Libertarian Party spends huge sums of money every cycle just trying to get on the ballot. We send out our petitioners, and everybody's out in the streets trying to get signatures, and we spend money on filing fees and all this kind of stuff. Well, our party doesn't have a huge sums of money to burn on this kind of thing. And by the time we've done all that, we've burnt out our activists and we've drained our coffers. So what chance do our candidates have of winning an election? So the idea is, if we can reduce ballot access laws around the country, it gives a dividend every year after we've passed this, because now you no longer have to pay as much fees, you no longer have to get as much signatures. And I was thinking, I've got this little team, and we're really working on trying to get this done, but I really need a movement. I really need everybody to get on board with pushing for ballot access changes. And so I came up with a plan, and on your table there, you'll see this little card, Ballots Without Barriers. And you can scan that and go to that, or you can just type it in ballotswithoutbarriers.com. So I've been talking to the Libertarian National Committee, and they've agreed that this would be a good proposal. And what it is, if you go to this website, you can scroll down and you can put in your address, okay? And it pulls up your state representatives. And you can push a button and automatically email your state representatives telling them that you want to have ballot access changed. You can also, we're not quite implemented yet, but you will also be able to push a button and we'll send a physical piece of mail on your behalf to your state legislator and telling them that you want to have this done. Now, importantly, I need a champion or several champions in every state who knows how to navigate the halls of their state capital, who has some access to a state representative that would put forth the bill to change the ballot access laws. And so that's what I'm trying to do, is start a movement across this country, not just with libertarians. I'm trying to get the Green Party involved. I'm trying to get the Forward Party involved. Anybody independent, anybody that has suffered under the crucial ballot access regime that we have, I want to champion those people so that we can get more competition in our politics. And additionally, on that website, you'll see a thing that's the ballot tax. And if you put in your state, it will tell you around roughly how much money it costs for you to be able to get on the ballot in your state. This is basically a tax. It's like a poll tax, except it's a ballot tax. And poll taxes are illegal. Ballot taxes should also be illegal. We have a saying in the Libertarian Party: when people take your fruits of your labor and your production away from you. I think it goes something like, taxation is, that's the one. All right, so there's a guy that's been working on ballot access for probably 40 years or more in the party, and his name is Richard Winger. And Richard Winger puts out Ballot Access News. And there's nobody in America that knows ballot access more than Richard Winger. And he's been carrying this torch for 40 years. And he's been educating people. And he's been leading the fight in getting ballot access reform. And now I want to pick up that torch and I want to run with it with a team, with people with money, with an army of people behind us trying to get ballot access laws changed. And so I know Richard isn't here, but I wanted to give Richard Winger a round of applause. All right. Go to this website right now. Scan with your phone, it's easy. And put in your address and push that button. The reality of it is this is very easy activism. And people are often looking for a way that they can participate in bringing liberty to America. And I think that this is a real easy way that we can all get behind and really change American politics. I can see that it's working. When I saw this proportional representation in Wyoming after we went there, and I realized, and the success that we had in Maine, we can do this. We can literally change the way the system works so that we actually do have competitive elections in America, so that libertarians can win. It is my belief that, and some people disagree, that a political party is to run candidates and win elections. You can't run candidates and win elections if you can't get on the friggin' ballot. So I guess what I want to say is that really, if you are a gas station attendant, if you are a school teacher, if you are a plumber, whatever you do, if you want to serve this country and you want to make it a better place, you should have the same access as the Republicans and Democrats do to be able to serve your country. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay, yeah. Well, we have some time left, so I would entertain some questions. Yes, Barbara? It's not a question, it's a comment. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. I know Fina might be here, and she had run in Hawaii, and it was something like a few $1,000s or something. And then when she went to Florida, or no, it was cheap in Hawaii, like $50. And then when she went to Florida, it was like $3,000 for the same, $10,000 for the same position. And I remember her doing this huge fundraising just to get on the ballot. Imagine if she had that $10,000 to go out and preach libertarian stuff to people, right? So.
If you do have a question for Lars, feel free to come up to one of the microphones. And that way everybody can hear your question too.
Good point.
Lars, given that you're from California, are you familiar with the work being done by ProRep and CalRCV, that's California Ranked Choice Voting, which are both trying to get some of what you want? We're not trying to do exactly what you did in Wyoming because we have nonpartisan elections everywhere below, and you can't do things by party for non-castinal. But they are, the goal of both is to get proportional representation. And ProRep is remaining neutral on what kind at this point. They just want to see something. CalRCV is specifically pushing for proportional ranked choice voting, and we'd love to have you help.
Yeah, I did push for ranked choice voting in my town because I felt like that was a good way to create competition. So I'm in favor of other voting methods than we currently use, because I think the method that we use right now, winner take all, is basically just another way that they rig the game so that they can, stay in power. So I'm in favor of changing that. Yes, sir.
I got a quick question and a deeper question. The quick question is, when they're putting in the costs, is that for a congressional run?
I believe it is. It could be a combined congressional run / presidential run. Although the California one looks pretty close to what it cost for the congressional run, so I'm going to say congressional.
Right. You and I are both running for Congress in California. And then the deeper question is that this reminds me a lot of the vote for women's suffrage, in that the people who are already elected are elected by keeping out certain other people.
Yep.
And in that case, they had to fight for a really long time and have a couple of good things come together in order to get it happen. What kind of leverage do you see to tell Republicans and Democrats who are profiting by having it an exclusive club to open it up? Because, yeah, they're going to get letters from people, but they're going to go, why would I want this to happen? What leverage do we have to change them?
Yeah, and I think that's really exactly what I'm trying to do here, is the leverage is it needs to take hundreds of thousands of people sending letters to their Congress people and to their state house representatives in order for them to even pay any attention to what we're doing, because they have no incentive to do that, obviously. What I will say is that going to Wyoming and meeting with the state reps there, one of the state reps said something to me that just like shook me to the core. I'd never heard it from a politician before. And he said, I said, well, how would you vote on these different things? And he said, well, I vote whatever my constituents want me to vote. I don't have a position. What? What? And he said, in fact, I probably vote sometimes not the way that I would vote, but I'm here to represent the people that elected me. What? So it's, I think that there are principled people in government in some places. And, we can see a few shining lights. Most of them are corrupt, bureaucratic, slogs. And I also believe that the longer that they're in there, the more likely they are to become corrupt. So I'm a big fan of term limits.
Hello. First of all, thank you. I did fill it out and sent my reps another email, as they're probably getting tired of seeing my name. But Drew Shorkey, San Diego. I do have a question. When it comes to a proportional system, like you're advocating for, how did the individual candidates get selected? If they're saying 10% go to libertarians, but we had 50 libertarians running,
Yeah.
who gets the nod?
Yeah.
Who makes that call? And
Yeah.
how do I defend that when I'm advocating for this?
Yeah, so in this particular case, I still didn't completely wrap my head around the mechanics of it all. Think tank people were pitching it, and it was think tank talk, which is kind of like bylaws talk. But the idea is that the parties would select their slate of candidates and submit that slate of candidates. So I imagine that it would be something along the lines of how we select our presidential candidate. There would be delegates, and they would vote on their slate of people that they would want to run. And there was an option for independents that weren't in any party. You could run as an independent, and if independent got enough votes, you would get in, which would be interesting because in California, I think really across America right now, Republicans and Democrats are in the minority, right? The independent party, the independents, are the majority of people. And so if we could motivate those people, somebody said earlier that some very small percentage of libertarians actually vote. If we could, and I said if every independent in America voted for Lars for president, I would be president of the United States. You had a second piece, I think.
Just on how to advocate for a proportional system. Like, if I'm pushing people to support this,
Yeah.
how do I overcome their disinterest?
Well, it's interesting because I spoke with both Republican and Democrat legislators in Wyoming, and everybody was for it. And the reason they were for it was the women's suffrage movement was passed in Wyoming. I kind of knew that, but they had giant murals all over Cheyenne, saying that they were the ones that did that. And so the thing that they're interested in is they had used to have where each county voted, and that was their district, was their county. And they call it something like all counties or my county. And in Wyoming, counties are super important, so much so that you have on your vehicle license plate the county that you're from. So they are so for them, that's the way. So maybe you just have to find the angle that works for the particular group of people you're working with, And I think one of the angles is just free and fair elections. Don't you believe in competition? When I say that to people, they say yes, but the funny thing is they only really care about free and fair elections when their party is winning. Star Child.
Yeah, so I also went to your website just now, Lars, and a couple quick suggestions. One is there's the thing where it's like calculate your ballot tax, and it's I think a red button or a blue button, and then there's contact your representatives, which is the other color, red or blue. Because of the two parties being associated with those colors, I think that could be a little bit confusing. I recommend instead having calculate your ballot access, that be a red button, like stop, you're not going to get on the ballot, and then contact your representatives, have that be a green button, like go, do something. Just a quick, simple change there. But the other thing I was thinking about in terms of how to sell proportional representation or convince people this is viable and workable and everything, I have a list of the countries where it's being used right now, because it is used in other countries around the world, and a lot of people don't know that. And so people say, oh, this could not work or whatever. It's like, well, it's working here, here, and here, you know. So those are two suggestions. And the third suggestion I have is for a slogan to use in connection with this whole ballot access thing, which is an old one but good one: no taxation without representation.
Sick. Love it. One more? Okay.
Hi, Sandra Callender from Contra Costa County. I've been chair there for about 2 weeks now, and I've gone to lots and lots of our social events. They're sometimes called business meetings, but usually not much business is officially done, and it's not really high priority. Both in Los Angeles County and up in Contra Costa County. And after a while, because I want to see results, I sometimes will stop getting involved. I'll try to do things on my own. But you're talking about a letter writing campaign, and I signed up a long time ago with Downsize DC. They had this plan where you could go online, and once they got to 300 people willing to do it, they would start sending us on a kind of a schedule to Sacramento to lobby. And then nobody had to go alone. They could just show up. So far, I've signed up for quite a number of their issues, but we're not getting 300 people signed up in my county, so it's not working, or I'm in my district, whatever the borders are. But one of the things I did do is I found the local office, and it's the campaign office, and I already kind of knew because Ron Paul gave advice about there are people inside that are feeding us tips on how this works. And we know they pay a lot more attention when you show up in person. They also pay more attention when you send it through the mail. You write it out, send it through the mail. And if it looks like it was pre-printed or pre-planned or automated, they're getting used to ignoring it. Same with the phone calls. And so, but I know that the people at the office are keeping statistics about what's coming in because they need to know how to make us happy. So one thing I would think about doing, because I'm trying to think about things we can do at our social events, you could have a big box of stationery and stamps, and you could have a little presentation. And I liked your stories about these injustices, because all of those, to me, the big thing about this is it injures people who, the voters in general, the public, the consumer of the product have no choices.
That's right.
And that's the big thing. And I think this is an issue where we could invite total strangers to come and hear about how to have more options on the ballot and get disaffected people from everywhere. And I don't really care if they sign up for the party as much as I care whether they will at least vote for our candidates as a second choice. If they have a preference and they don't like that option, they don't want to vote for the opposite. They want to vote for us. They want to be free. So I think that's a place to start, and then you take the best of them and you recruit them. But in the meantime, they can come and we can all write these letters, sitting around talking about what we're putting down. And I think it would be more dynamic and interesting in a social event for people to talk about that, because we wouldn't dictate what they said, but basically then you don't want to maybe mail them all at once, or maybe you do, but they start trickling in, and it's going to look like somebody got organized. But I think it would be effective, and it would make us seem way more influential than we seem now, without a whole lot of work. So it's just an idea if you're trying to do these campaigns. The other thing is, of course, you post whatever the plan is and how you're going to do it and fundraise.
You're hired. Yeah, so one of the things that the Voting Rights Foundation, that's this piece here, This is the education piece of our organization. And we plan on printing materials to take to the California State Fair as an example. And we'll be putting that together. But I liked all your ideas. I'm going to review the video because you had a lot of great ideas, and some of them I've already thought of them, and some of them I haven't. And the fairies that do the code probably got the hint of the changes that we need to make. I heard it. All right, is that it? Thank you very much. Thank you.